It did it. Pepper did it. I don't know what Pepper did, but it did it. Hey, Ernie.
Hi, sweet boy. Can I? Sorry. Can I? Can you? Do you... This one's also begging for cuddles. Ernie is a needy baby, and Pepper is acting very sensitive the last few days, so I feel like she's probably going to want to be on my lap. How was your trip?
My trip was great. My nephew's adorable. Oh, God, he's so cute. I could just eat him on a cracker.
Oh, good. How's the jet lag treating you?
I feel like I've been alright. I mean, considering...
Except for the fact that you slept for like 4 hours yesterday.
I did sleep for 4 hours yesterday, but that was more because I hadn't slept all night. Because I was on the plane and I can't sleep on planes. Yeah. Everyone around me was like, how do you do it?
I can literally sleep anywhere.
So, this is how we're recording today. So, how are you going to read your notes to tell me your episode?
Are we doing my episode as well? Whose episode is this supposed to be? Mine or yours?
Yours.
Oh, okay, then I'm ready.
No, I'm joking. It's mine. I did not think you'd be that prepared.
I'm so prepared. I've got a whole episode ready.
Okay, no, it's fine. All right, let's just get started because this is ridiculous now. Okay, hello and welcome to our podcast.
26 to life. We're after 26 years of friendship. We've been together for longer than a life sentence.
And Rosie apparently is so over it. She's like, oh, and after 26 years of life.
Okay, considering that was the second time that we did it.
Each week, twice a week, we tell each other true crime stories, and we have been so bad for timings and everything the last 2 weeks. Life has been so busy. Rosie's babysitting 2 extra dogs. I've been with my beautiful baby nephew, but we have basically missed every deadline that we set for ourselves. Do you believe in nature or nurture?
Yeah.
That's a question. It's not a yes or no answer.
Oh, no. No, but I believe that both. I believe that there's nature and nurture.
Okay, right. So, give me...
I don't believe it's all nature or all nurture.
So why do you think it is that a lot of serial killers and a lot of things that happen, right? They go through something when they're younger. Why is it that all of those people who go through that same thing when they're younger don't become serial killers?
Well, that's because that's nature.
So you think that there are some people who have serial killer tendencies? They're born that way?
I think... it's not that I think they're born with it. I think that there's...
Maybe it's Maybelline.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they are born with it. Maybe it's not... No, it's not that they're born with it. I feel like there is something inside people. It'll either come out or it will be repressed, depending on how they're treated. But the thing is that you could have the serial killer tendency, but because you've had a good upbringing, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to act on it, you know? Because you know that it's wrong, and you know that you haven't had any reason, like, to hate people with a passion, you know? Like, there's not something in you that's telling you that it's the right thing to do. But you could still have that inside you. It's just that your upbringing has taught you that's not right, you know?
So it's almost like a switch.
Yeah, because there are some people who have terrible upbringings and are still, like, wonderful people, you know? And then there are other people who have had excellent upbringings and are still serial killers. So I don't know, maybe it's... I feel like there's a bit of both. I guess maybe there is, I don't know, now I'm going around again. Because if they did have a beautiful upbringing and they are still serial killers, then I guess it is to do with nature. It is inside them.
Today we are talking about Dennis Nielsen. He was a serial killer. He's apparently Scottish. Well, he is Scottish, but he doesn't have a Scottish accent. Does everyone in Scotland have a really strong Scottish accent?
Most people I've met, yeah. But I mean, he doesn't sound Scottish at all.
No.
Peculiar.
Yeah, I think it's a thing of he grew up and he tried to shun his upbringing, if I'm honest. But, you know,
okay. He fought against it.
Yeah, I'm not a psychoanalyst, psychiatrist, whatever it's called. Anyway, he was born in Fraserburgh. Is that how you say it?
I've never heard of it.
It is north of Aberdeen.
That's like way north. Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Right. On the tip of the tippity tip bit, like to the side. It's not at the top, it's to the tip, to the side. That bit. So he's born there, and he's born on the 29th of November, 1945.
End of the war.
There we go. I was just waiting for you to get that. It wasn't that important, but... And he's the second of 3 children. So he's middle child, so he already feels hard done by, which, you know, we know.
Yeah, struggle.
There's going to be a lot of times where I feel like I'm sympathising with this man, and I'm really not, but, you know, he was a middle child.
I mean, there's reason enough to be a serial killer right there.
His mum is Scottish. She's called Elizabeth White, and his father was a Norwegian soldier called Olav.
Classic Norway.
Count Olav. What's that from?
I was thinking Olaf the Snowman, but you're thinking series of unfortunate events.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, so his dad was Norwegian, and he had moved there. I don't know this, which, considering I'm a history teacher, isn't great. He moved there in 1940 to Scotland as part of the resistance movement because the Nazis occupied Norway. So I'm guessing it was kind of the soldiers was thinking, I'm not sticking around for this, like, we're doing the off. Yeah. So, but it does mean that he was very preoccupied because he wasn't moving there and sort of settling down roots. They do say that he was very preoccupied with his life, even though he's married Elizabeth. They're not sort of a great couple. Yeah, they don't have this kind of what you would expect 1940s traditional marriage. I was about to say 1945, and then I realised he's the second and he was... Well, no. Anyway, they don't have this. And in 1948, they get divorced. So Elizabeth and her 3 kids, it's really not that sad. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a bit of backstory. Olav Jr., Dennis and Sylvia, they all move in with the grandparents, Elizabeth's grandparents. Quite a few things. When I was looking up the family tree and whatnot, they're on Ancestry and DNA, whatever, and they all keep the sister's name, like she wants to be kept anonymous. But then I read loads of sources with her name in it, and I thought if she wanted to stay anonymous, she has not done a good job of this.
Yeah, but maybe she just doesn't want to be associated with her brother if he's a serial killer.
That's true. If I was related to a serial killer, I would not put myself on Ancestry.com.
No, nor would I. But okay, can we also just talk about the fact that you looked into their family trees? What kind of deep dive are you doing into this family? I don't think I've ever looked at a case when I've had to look into their family tree. I feel like I'm not doing enough. Now you made me nervous.
Was not relevant in any way, shape or form.
Excellent.
I wanted to know Elizabeth's second husband's name.
I feel like you've just spiraled. You're like... Yeah, I feel like you've just spiraled there.
Which is also not that important to the case
I just needed to know Elizabeth's second husband's last name so I could check the breed of dog that his brother had.
I also went into it because, right, Olav Magnus Moksheim is his full name. His middle name is Magnus. Elizabeth's middle name is Duthie, which I thought was quite cool. Duthie. Duthie. Duthie? Duthie?
It has to have a meaning, surely. Like, there has to be a meaning behind Duthie.
Say it in a Scottish accent. No, she's Scottish. That's Elizabeth Duthie White.
Oh.
And Olav Magnus Moksheim, right? And then I went into
I'll ask my Scottish friends, don't worry.
Yeah, but then apparently, according to Olav's ancestry, he changes his name to Nielsen. That's where Dennis Nielsen comes from. I don't know. Yeah, but it didn't give me the year. Maybe I needed to look into deed polls of when he changed his name. I'm not sure when. It might have been because he changed it when he arrived in Scotland. Anyway. He just did, and he's called Dennis Nielsen now. So, we have the maternal grandparents, Andrew and Lily. They hadn't approved the marriage in the first place. So when the divorce happens, they're well up for it. They're thinking, great, move in with us, don't worry about it.
Yeah, told you so kind of parents, yeah.
Yeah, and Nielsen, he describes, and when I'm talking about Nielsen now, I'm going to be talking about Dennis, the serial killer. He describes his grandparents as in quite a negative way. He says that they're really cold and they're so religious that they're really blah, 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 blah. But I kind of get the impression with this man that when he talks, he just wants to blame everything on somebody else. And he wants to be interesting. Do you know, like serial killers want to be they want to be one of a kind. And so he says, yeah, they were super cold, super religious, blah, 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 blah. But his grandfather was the most important person in the world to him. And when he was with his granddad, it was when he was the happiest. And they used to go on these long walks and yeah.
But
So
they were also really cold and not very nice, apparently.
Yeah. They called him, what was it? He was always with his I can't remember what it was called, what they called him, but it was quite cute. Anyway, his granddad was a fisherman, which difficult job, would go out for ages. And he said that when his granddad was away, it was terrible, like it was the worst time. He was only happy when his granddad was there. And one day when he was about 5 years old, no, he was exactly 5 years old, just a few months before he turned 6, his granddad had a heart attack at sea. Died. They brought the body back and they said to him, do you want to see it? And he saw the body.
They gave a 5-year-old the option of seeing their grandfather's dead body. Unless your family has a really healthy relationship with death, which I think is unlikely, because who has a healthy relationship with death? I think that having your 5-year-old see their dead grandparent, I think that is trauma just waiting for them. You know, that's just like that. I don't think that's healthy. You know, like how is a 5-year-old? If you've never, I mean, obviously I don't know how he was brought up, but if you've never spoken to your 5-year-old about death before, because why would you speak to them about death in such intense terms unless it happened?
I'm trying to remember how I dealt with it with Leo when my grandma died.
Did he see her?
No, not the body.
No.
But she died at home, so we obviously had to wait for them to come and collect her and stuff. But because he was pretty much the same age. But I'm thinking about it now, and I don't remember specifically sending him away or anything, but I know I did. I know he didn't see the body, because I know we even discussed whether or not he should go to the funeral.
I feel like when it's in the home, though, it's slightly different, because it probably more looks like that she's just sleeping, you know? That she's just asleep and that you don't really recognise.
Why don't I remember this? Because I remember he didn't see the body. I remember having the conversation about whether or not he should come to the funeral. No, he did. He must have come to the funeral because I've got a picture of him in a suit.
He must have only been about 5 or 6, right?
Yeah, younger, 4 or 5. Anyway, okay, I digressed. I just thought,
as usual.
So he's seen the body. After this, he becomes super, super withdrawn. But
as you would expect,
his mum is saying he was just a quiet child, nothing sort of massively red flaggish. But then I think, how much did they actually know about sort of children's behaviour? Surely children were kind of seen and not heard, or is that more Victorian times?
I don't know, but even so, like, I mean, I guess they probably didn't recognise childhood depression either, but that's a real thing. And if he was depressed, not only
that
from
age,
yeah, a child can be depressed at any age. Yeah, a 5-year-old can easily be depressed, and if he was depressed not only because he saw his granddad's body, but because his granddad died and at sea, and he didn't have any closure from the fact that he didn't get to say goodbye to his granddad and stuff like that. Like,
why has this episode got me contemplating all my parenting?
No, but it's But yeah, like he could 100% be depressed, and if nobody recognised it, then that could just be why he spirals, you know?
Yeah. Well,
you carry on. I'm just going to Google at the same time.
So he starts to become super withdrawn. He doesn't want any affection, but he also is really resentful of the affection that his two siblings are getting, which I kind of then thought, oh, middle child, I feel that. So he's one day he's walking along the beach, and because he goes out on these little day trips because he's so sort of, so inside himself, and he can't. I'm only mocking this because he's a idiot, but he's walking along the beach and he goes into the water and he gets pulled into the water and he's underneath the water and he's panicking and he's fighting for his life, and then this sense of calm comes over him and he thinks, oh, my granddad's going to save me, and he just lets himself be drowning while he waits for his granddad to save him. Obviously his granddad doesn't save him because his granddad's dead, so he's saved by another child, which is obviously traumatic for that child, and I don't believe him at all. I mean, the thing is...
What do you mean you don't believe him?
Where's this story come from?
What do you mean?
I mean, where's this story come from? How do we know this story? From the mouth of a lunatic.
Okay. When does he start killing people? Let's get to the good stuff.
Okay, sorry. Anyway. Yeah, so I have a whole paragraph on me just being like, yeah, this little kid was like, la 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 la, granddad's gonna save me. He's obviously not. Anyway, yeah, I do think that he's trying to be all, when he's talking, he's trying to be all artistic, and the bench that I sat on in the courthouse was so hard yet so soft when it defined my life, and I just thought, shut up.
Oh my god. He sounds like a right douche.
He's such a honestly. Not long afterwards, they move out of the grandparents' house, and then the mum remarries, and she has another 4 children. So there is now 7 children. I know, wild. 7 children, and he's not, at first, he's not a fan of his stepdad. He thinks he's got too many rules, and he's a bit sort of authoritarian. I was like, well, obviously, yeah, you've got 7 kids in the house. You need to run that like a freaking military operation, if otherwise you'll all be climbing the walls, you freaking lunatics. But he does end up quite respecting him, but he's not sure of him. And he goes through puberty, and it's a tough time for him because he's confused about his sexuality, blah, blah, blah. He's not really confused. He knows he's gay, but he feels he can't admit that. And this, I really felt for him, because I was like...
I mean, at that time of...
Yeah, and I'm not trying to condone this in any way, but it is just so unfair. There is... And this is where I'm saying, nature or nurture, that internalised hatred for himself obviously comes from... but then he takes all my sympathy away because he says all the boys that he fancies look a bit like my sister, so it must mean that I actually fancy her, so he starts molesting her, which... Great. Gross. Yeah. Vile. I mean, that's wrong. You dingbat. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my god.
I did feel sorry for him for about 5 seconds when I thought, oh, imagine being gay and a teenager at this time. That's really hard. And then I hated him. Yeah, then I hated him. So he's said to academically excel. Now, when you listen to American podcasts and things, they always talk about the IQ of serial killers.
Yeah.
We don't do that here, do we?
No, but I checked my IQ the other day and I'm incredibly intelligent.
Are you? But how does it know that?
What do you mean? How does it know that?
I mean, you are very clever. I'll give you that. I'm not denying that at all. But I do believe that there's different types of intelligence.
I mean, I guess IQ is almost like BMI,
Yeah, I'm obese on the BMI.
Yeah, as am I.
No, not obese, overweight. Am I obese or am I overweight?
No, I think I'm overweight.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, you wouldn't be obese, I'm sure that's... Yeah. But I feel like the IQ is maybe that same kind of scale in that it doesn't take everything into account.
It doesn't take everything into account, but he apparently at school excelled blah, 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 blah. And I don't think I can't really talk on IQ, can I? I mean, really book smart, but anyway, he enlists in the military. Some sources say 14, some say 16. I'm going to go with both being true. He went into kind of like the cadets at 14.
Oh.
It was just after World War II, so we know he's not joining because they think the war is great. He's joining because he wants to get away from his life, because obviously his life is so hard just being a teenager. And he trains as a cook in the military. A butcher. Red
flag.
Yeah, but that's weird because he's cooking, so I think they just mean that they taught him how to cut meat and stuff. I think they've just picked out...
I was just kidding. It's not actually a red flag.
They've picked out all these really, really minuscule pieces of information and have turned it into moments, So, which I'm now trying to do to you. But he actually stays in the military for 11 years and he does quite a lot of travelling. And I think this was the appeal of it, because you are from this tiny little town in Scotland. You don't come from money. You're one of 7. You don't really have that many opportunities from where you're from. And so he was just super excited to be able to travel. And he said that the first 3 years when he was in Hampshire doing their military training stuff were the happiest years of his life. But he does start to feel really awkward around the men because they have to shower together and stuff, and he doesn't want them to see his willy.
See his pee-pee.
He doesn't want them to see that he has an erection.
Oh no.
Yeah, so he is very private and blah, 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 blah. He then goes to West Germany, Osnabrück. What's the little 2 dots above the U? Osnabrück. Yeah,
no idea.
Yeah, so he goes there and he now serves as a private. Is a private not a soldier? Like private peaceful?
I don't know. I've genuinely no idea. Save Private Ryan.
Why did I go down the Ancestry.com route when I should have probably looked into this stuff?
You should have looked what a private is and what the 2 dots above the U are.
I don't have time to answer all my own questions.
So you expect me to know the answer to them. I just don't.
Yeah, you just told me how high your IQ is. Okay, so...
You said that you're book smart.
Yeah, but only the books I read.
Which are usually to do with history.
Yeah, so he's a private soldier.
Okay.
And he likes to keep himself private as well. Anyway, he starts drinking a lot and he develops this fascination with people who become unconscious when they're drinking, to the point that he actually starts pretending to drink so much that he falls unconscious in the hope that he will be touched by another man while he is unconscious. Yeah. And
do people do that? Do people touch him while he's unconscious?
It doesn't say. We don't know.
Oh.
But that was kind of like his... Yeah, he just was lying there hoping beyond hope. And so, yeah, he then goes to Norway and then is later I said Norway and then Yemen, so I'm guessing I didn't mean they're the same place. He goes to Norway, that's fine. Then he goes to Yemen, and then, again, right, listen to this story. Quite a few men from his barracks go missing, and they're kidnapped and they're killed between barracks and driving around. So we know it's a dangerous situation they're in. Nielsen, one day, remember, he's either a private or a chef, so not the most important high-ranking people in the military. Yeah. He is kidnapped by an Arab taxi driver, beaten to the point that he's put in the boot of the car, and when he's being removed from the boot of the car, he manages to find a jackhammer, which I just wrote tool because I don't know what a jackhammer is.
A jackhammer's a heavy thing.
See, you knew that one. Um,
Yeah, I did.
yeah, he manages to find some kind of tool and beats the taxi driver, and then he puts the taxi driver in the boot, and
Oh,
that's
how
that.
the tables have turned.
And that's it.
Uno reverse card.
That's it. That's the story. Do you not think that's an utter pile of donkey crap?
Wait, but that's not the end of the story.
No,
That's just the end of that story.
that's the end of that story. Like
that one.
that one particular story. That's it. That's it. I didn't
My
actually
memories are
research any.
terrible.
I didn't research any further than that. I kind of got so caught up in the jackhammer and the ancestry.com. I just gave up at that point.
What? Okay. Yeah, that's that. He didn't. What happened to
Right.
the taxi driver?
How should I know?
That was it. That was all you got.
That was all I've got.
Bloody
Anyway,
hell.
does his time with his military, he leaves them and he moves back in with his family. And they say his mum reports that he wasn't married with children. Not like later down the line, she was really concerned because he wasn't married with children and blah, blah, blah. And I just thought, yeah, do you know what? It's like the 50s or the 60s. Every mother is going to be saying to their son, oh, why haven't you got married and have kids yet? So, but I can understand.
It wouldn't be
somebody
natural for them to be getting married at like 20, 21, you know? That's.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was the time.
And I can imagine for someone hiding their sexuality that is a really difficult thing for your mother to constantly be jibber jabbering on about. Like, honestly, mum, shut up. Oh,
Were his family religious?
I think they were religious. They weren't the same as his grandparents religious, but they were crazy homophobic.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's one story about him and his brother and his sister-in-law watching a TV program, and there's something about gay men, or I think it's even just men dancing together. It wasn't sort of anything, it wasn't porn, but they were sitting there talking about how gross and disgusting it was and blah, 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 and Nielsen's defending gay rights.
Mm-hmm.
And Olaf Jr., do you not find that funny? Okay. Olaf Jr., that is his name, he goes to their mum and he's like, oh, he's gay. And that's probably not how he said it, but he does that. And then the brothers never speak to each other again. I know.
That's okay. He's got like 5 other siblings.
Who's it okay for? I wouldn't want to speak to Nielsen anyway. He's such turd face. Anyway, he moves to London.
Got 5 other siblings that they can.
Oh, the other one. Yeah. I mean, he's still a dingbat for being like he's still a disgusting homophobe.
But at this point, they didn't know that Nielsen was a serial killer, so
yeah. But the brother was also homophobic, which we don't like him either. Yeah. Anyway, Nielsen moves to London and he becomes a police officer. Now, it kind of gives the impression he's a bit of a crap police officer. They talk about, he did make 3 or 4 arrests. So I was like, yeah, that's probably quite a crucial part of the job, if I'm honest.
Yeah, in London, 3 or 4 arrests, it's not that much.
So he doesn't even last a year, and one of the guys that he was working with was called Bob Brenton, and he said Nielsen was a real loner, would avoid eye contact, nothing wrong with that if you're not a murderer, and he wasn't a great police officer. And Brenton said that there was a phone call to the police station, probably a 999 call, actually thinking about it. Anyway, and he had to go to a house because there had been an assault. And he goes in and it was really weird. The walls were painted black, a window was smashed, and there was blood everywhere. And this teenager had been taken to hospital and had to have over 100 stitches. And he told his story, and he said he was picked up by this man in a pub, given loads of alcohol, they were drinking, la la la. The kid wakes up and realises that he's completely naked, and so he jumps out of the window to get away. And he says that the man who did this was a Scottish man. Bob goes back to the police station, and who's sitting there is his old bud, Dennis Nielsen.
Who's Scottish.
Yeah, even though he doesn't sound Scottish to me.
And has a history of liking people to be unconscious when they drink.
Dennis said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Are you charging me or not? He's really arrogant, really kind of, I know the law, you can't touch me. Da, 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 da. And this kid was a missing person. And when they spoke to the parents say, no, we don't want to press charges.
The
parents
say, no.
said
that they don't want to press charges.
No, parents don't want to press charges. I'm guessing it's because of the homophobia. And Bob says in his report, I think this man is a dangerous psychopath. And he says, Dennis is 100% going to do this again. And he basically has to say to Dennis, you're so lucky that he hasn't pressed charges. And I have a couple of issues.
So this guy knows that it was Dennis. It's just simply because he was Scottish.
No, Dennis has been arrested for it. He's been brought into the police station. The flat that the boy jumped out the window of was Dennis's flat.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
They didn't just find any Scottish man in the vicinity and they were like, you'll do. So they arrested him, took him to the police station. Bob gets there, Bob Brenton, and he is like, oh my God, I can't believe it's you. And then the kid, they find out he was a missing person. Parents don't want to press charges. And he has to say to Dennis, you're so lucky, you can go. There's nothing we can do. And I have 2 points of contention with this. Is contention the right word? I have 2 points of contention with this. He says, GBH, with intent, you could get life. And I thought, no, you would not. Sorry. In no freaking world would you have done that. Like, I'm not saying he shouldn't. I'm just saying do not give the judicial system and the police that much credit. And also, surely you can press charges without the person. Like, they are the witness. But if you know from their statement, I don't know. Anyway, I think, and it comes out later, the police just don't care because they're gay.
I thought, oh God, like we haven't seen that before. Fucking hell. I thought that... Yeah, tell me about it. I thought that they could still... Because even if they're pressing charges and then they're like, okay, yeah, we've got this whole thing. But even if they then say, okay, we don't want to press charges anymore, the police can still be like, well, too late because we've got a case. So they don't need that person to press charges.
Yeah, I think so. I think they can do it. And also, because surely if he's a child, I think it's because the parents said they don't want to. But if he's a child, the police can just say, well, you know, we're doing it because he's a child.
How old was he?
It doesn't say. So in 1975, he's in London and he's living with a guy called David Galichan at 195 Melrose Place. And this guy was a really vulnerable individual. He was unemployed and he became reliant on Nielsen because Nielsen, by this point, he's left the police and he did some odd jobs to start with, and then he works in a job centre as like interviewing people who go in to apply for job seekers. And so they're in a relationship of sorts, but there's definitely a power imbalance because Nielsen feels that he is the dominant one and David feels indebted to him because he's living there and he doesn't have any money and blah, blah, blah. But Nielsen becomes really, really verbally abusive and they split up and David Galichan, he moves out, and that is when this whole murder spree starts. So it's December 28th or the 30th, depending on what source you read, 1978. And I'm guessing the reason it's not very clear is because Nielsen isn't caught for ages. So we're going by Nielsen's testimony and like piecing this together. And he meets a young man in a pub. And I say young man, but some of the sources say that he was as young as 14 years old. And his name was Stephen Holmes. They go back to his house. And apparently Nielsen is so terrified that Stephen's going to leave him that he makes sure that he's like, no, I'm going to keep him here with me forever. And he strangles this boy. He's adamant this boy is never going to leave. After that, he puts the body under the floorboards for 7 months. Ew. Can you imagine the smell? And then he later burns the body in the back garden and buries the remains, like the ashes and the little tiny bone fragments that he couldn't burn.
And this is in London.
This is in London.
So, I mean, the gardens are pretty close to each other. How
Yeah.
the hell did no one say anything about him burning a dead body?
They said they assumed it was rubbish. I've seen interviews with them and they were like, yeah, he used to have bonfires all the time.
Jesus. And the smell of burning a dead body. People be stupid.
Yep. And this 14-year-old was not, he was a runaway and just nobody seemed to care. And when people, I mean, we hear it so many times in documentaries and things like that and podcasts, that if there is a runaway, it's like, oh, it's their choice, that you can't, do you know what I mean? No, he's still a child and there are still people who are going to abuse him and whatever. So October 1970.
There are ways that you can support a runaway so that they don't want to run away, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it's not just because they
And
run
also,
away
can we
doesn't
still
mean, okay,
protect them once they've run
Exactly.
away?
Yeah.
We could still do stuff to keep them safe. So then we are in October 1979, so 10 months later, and he lures. How do you say it? Lures.
Lures.
No, you can't say it. Lures. No, it's lures.
He
He
lures.
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 Nielsen gets a student called Andrew Ho to his flat, where, no, it has to be lures.
Lures. No, when you say it, you're putting like another E in there. You're saying lures. But it's just lures.
Lures.
Yeah, lures.
Lures a
Lures.
student. Lures.
Lures.
That does not make sense anymore. Where he attempted to strangle him. So this is a student. The man reported it to the police. Nielsen was questioned, but the boy decided not to press charges, which I understand. The boy, you know. But can we not be a little bit suspect of this man who's now had one teenager jump out of his window and another student coming to you? I mean,
Why didn't he want to press charges? Why? Why?
because of this stigma. They don't want to admit that they're gay.
I mean, everybody already knows.
No, not Nielsen, the student.
I'm sure everybody already knew.
No, that must be so hard. You're such a cold heart.
No, I mean, come on. Like, you have what's the word? Reported a crime that you were with a guy. Like, the police officers already know what you were doing.
The police officers do, but now imagine the rest of the world, or like your family, or your friends, or whatever. If you have to go through a trial, if you have to, all of those things, imagine saying, and anyway, we now move on to Ken Ockenden. He is 23 years old, and he's a Canadian student. He is travelling around London and England to see his family, but also to do touristy stuff. And he meets Nielsen on the 3rd of December 1979. And they meet in a pub, they're drinking, and Nielsen offers to show him around London. So this isn't that they're hooking up or anything like that. And this becomes really important because there was this stigma attached to Nielsen's murders. Do you remember I spoke about it with the Yorkshire Ripper, that if you were attacked by the Yorkshire Ripper, you must have been a prostitute?
Yeah.
There was kind of that, and that was why it wasn't dealt with properly with this, was that all of the men who he killed were gay. And actually it wasn't true. Not that it should matter even if it is true, but it wasn't true.
He was just targeting young men, despite, no matter what their sexuality was.
Yeah. And so he offers to show him around London, and they go and buy a load of booze, and they see whatever, and they go and buy a load of drinks. They go back to his house, and they're listening to music, and Nielsen uses the headphone cord to strangle Ken. The next day, he goes and buys a Polaroid camera, and he comes back home, and he starts posing the body in, sexually.
This is very, Dharma, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you watch that?
No.
You didn't watch it?
So, which one? the remake, like the drama or the documentary?
The drama, the
So
one that was
I,
more out more recently.
yeah, I don't know why, but I'm scared of dramas. So like a real life documentary, I can watch that. A drama, I can't because it makes me jump and it makes me scared.
I mean, it wouldn't make you scared, but it maybe would
I know the
affect.
story, obviously.
Yeah, but I
Um,
mean, that drama was like really well done, and it was like it was harrowing. Yeah,
oh
absolutely harrowing.
God, no, I can't. I can't. I remember seeing the families in court just screaming, I hate you" at him. Do you remember? Oh my God, that literally gives me chills. So he then puts the body under the floorboards, wrapped in plastic bags, but he's a disgusting. Blech. He takes him out a number of times over the next months to have him sit on the sofa with him, like to keep him company. He is a crackpot noodle. What on earth?
Oh my god!
Yeah. So anyway,
What?
gross. Gross.
So,
How bad must this man's house smell?
oh my god! But like at that point, after a month, there must be like decomposition and bodily
Yeah.
fluid and how?
7 months he kept the first person under the floorboards.
Oh my
Seven
god!
months.
Ugh.
His next victim is 16-year-old Martin Duffy. Now, we are going to have two Martins. We have one who survives and one who does not. Sadly, this is the one who does not. He meets Martin Duffy, who was a catering student, and Martin Duffy had just gone on a little adventure, just a little adventure without telling his parents. He was just a 16-year-old who decided to hitchhike to London, and when he arrives, I think he got in trouble with the British Transport Police, not like police, but he basically couldn't afford a fare for a train back home, or I don't know, but he got in trouble with them, and he ended up sleeping rough for about 4 days outside of Euston Station. And Nielsen sees him and he says, "Look, do you want to come to mine, have a hot shower, I'll give you a nice meal?" And the boy's like, "Absolutely, do I want this?" Like, I'm just, there must be an element of Nielsen that is not an imposing, threatening person.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah. But I mean, I guess someone also said that like he doesn't make eye contacts and stuff like that. You know, like that they probably just think that he's
Like an
quite
awkward guy.
shy and like
Yeah,
yeah, an
yeah.
introvert.
He's
You
just
know,
being
yeah,
kind. Yeah.
yeah.
And so sadly, he also kills Martin Duffy once he gets him back to his flat. We then have a man called Stephen Sinclair who was killed and he was never reported missing. But when they talked to Mary MacDonald, who was his foster mother in Perth, is that in Scotland?
Yeah.
Thought so. He had come to London and it was just a case of how often do you speak to your family members once you've kind of moved away? And then
Yeah.
we have another guy called Graham, and he had a partner and he had a child, but he really, really struggled with drug abuse. And he had had an argument with his wife. I don't know if they were married, but wife or partner or whatever. And she'd said to him, "Look, if you're going out to get high, do not bother coming back because, you know." And he went out and he got really, really drunk or took drugs or whatever. And he was trying to get a cab and no cabs were picking him up because he was so off his face, basically. And Nielsen says, "Well, I'll give you a lift home." And he takes him back to his house and he strangles him from behind. Nielsen then sat with the dead body on the sofa next to him. He also then stands him, the dead body, in front of a mirror, covers him in talcum powder, to like make him look super, super dead and cold, and would do things to the body. And he kept this body for days and days like this before yeah. When does a body start to smell? So he moves into somewhere called Cranley Gardens, and his tenants see him, and he's just kind of the quiet, bit odd, like not really, they don't really know him very well. And the tenants call in a plumber because, what's it, not a plumber? What's the word? Basically, their toilets are all blocked. So he's sharing a house now. They're renting.
Yeah, it would be a plumber, wouldn't it, for a toilet?
No, because it's outside. It's the drains outside.
Yeah, I don't know.
And they call this, and this guy, Mike Catran from Dino Rod, he says, look, I'm not an expert, but this is chunks of flesh. Like, when I am clearing out, why are we laughing?
I'm not laughing. I'm shocked. I just don't know why I didn't see that coming.
I mean, icky shock. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're so we've got this place in Cranley Gardens, and he says, I think it's flesh, like it's chunks of flesh. And
I'm no expert, but this is not your Sunday roast.
Engineer. This is what, And they find that these drains are crammed full of flesh.
Oh
and
my God.
they even find one part of flesh that they think has strangulation marks on it.
Oh,
ew!
How closely are they looking at it though? They're like,
obviously,
they're engineers.
This is the police. No, this is the police now. Sorry, I'm so bad at telling stories. I'm like, no, the police later find strangulation marks on it. And so the police are called, and
in the drains.
What? The police
in
are called?
The drains.
Yeah, in the drains.
Like the flesh is found in the drain.
Outside, yeah, under a manhole cover. They have to take the manhole cover off, and they find these blobs of flesh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And just imagine it's been in all that water and sewage and ew. And
oh God,
then the police are called, and then someone's talking to Dino Rod Man, Mike, and they say to him, was there anyone who was acting... Have you noticed how people at this time were really posh? Like, all of them were very well spoken.
I don't know.
He was like, well, there was a man actually acting a bit strange. Top floor flat. And obviously they're talking about Dennis Nielsen. So the police go and speak to him. And he's like, it's very odd that the police should come and talk to me about my drains. And the police say, look, can we come in? And he says, yes. And the police officer says he walks in, and it just hits him like this horrific smell. And the police officer said to him, where is the rest of the body? And he just points to the wardrobe.
And he's like, what do you mean, rest of the body? This is my roommate. And it's the dead man just sitting on the sofa. I'm sorry, that was bad. That was so bad. No, Carol, what is in the wardrobe? He's in the wardrobe. Oh, that was bad. That was a bad one. That was a bad one.
Whoa.
Sorry.
So they open this wardrobe and they find 2 black bin liners just crammed full of body parts. Like, absolutely brimming. And he is immediately arrested. Now, they're in the car on the way back to the police officer, and one police officer sat next to him, which I found weird, and one police officer's in the front. And they say, okay, look, are we talking about 1 body or 2? Because these bags are massive. And he just goes, 15 or 16? And the police are so stunned, like they just have to act quite calm, but he was like, yeah, 15 or 16. What?
And they're just like, cool, okay, great, cool.
20 minutes, about 20-minute drive, yeah.
Yep, just sit in awkward silence after that.
No, don't touch me! Don't touch me! Ew, he must smell so bad.
Oh God, you just know that he does.
Yeah, like snuggled up with dead bodies. Ew. I've been watching too much Schitt's Creek. Okay, so they go to Hornsey Police Station. Have we done something in Hornsey before? Like an episode there? I really recognise that name. Okay.
No.
And he later records himself. He's like musing about his cell. It's like, I was walked down this corridor with this. I was like, oh, mate, no one cares. Honestly, shut your face. He's trying to be really descriptive, and he's like, the walls were this and this.
Almost like poetic.
Yeah,
and it's
literally
like,
poetic and artistic, and it's like, it's not cute. Calm down.
no, definitely.
Yeah, you are literally a mothball who smells of dead bodies. Like, can we not?
Yeah.
Also, what's with the high IQ, but you think you can shove body parts down a toilet? Like, plumbing
Is that how he was getting rid of it? Down the toilet?
In the second place, he's chopping up the flesh and putting it... Well, obviously, how did you think it was getting into the drains, mate?
Honestly, I genuinely have no idea. But down the toilet, you can't even flush, like, sanitary towels down the toilet. Like, why the...
I assumed it was down the... I assumed it was down the toilet. He's not going outside to...
down the toilets.
Unless he's going outside himself and shoving it in the drains, but that's also stupid.
Yeah, but it'd be really hard for him to get the drain off. Maybe, but I mean, in the grates, I don't know. I genuinely don't know how I thought he was getting it in. I did think about the toilet, but then I thought, because sometimes
you can't flush a large poo in London without getting it backed up.
Oh, that's so true. See, because I was thinking that, like, my nan always just tell me, so say you've got, like, I don't know, maybe like soup that you obviously don't want to put soup in the bin because it's so wet, it'll just flow out the bag. You just flush it down the toilet.
That's what the kids do with their cereal.
Yeah, but then I was thinking, flesh. No.
Oh, can you not compare Nan's soup to flesh? She would be livid to know you'd just done that.
Yeah, she would. She makes really good soup. Really good soup.
I bet she does. She makes really good brownies too. Okay, so they're at the police station, and I don't understand this bit. They're like, we need to get as much out of him as possible because we can only hold him for 48 hours. I was like, sorry, what? Why?
What? You've just found dead bodies in his drain and in his wardrobe, and he said that there's 16 people that he's killed.
Oh, I just had a thought. Maybe they can only question him for 48 hours.
Yeah, but still, no. Surely that's not the case.
Surely once, you're arrested, and
you can.
We're not releasing the man on bail, are we?
No, definitely not. And you can surely interrogate him for as long as you need because you've arrested.
Yeah. So why were they saying that then?
Yeah, that's a bit bizarre. I don't know.
You found dead bodies in his wardrobe.
And they were like,
you arrested him, you put him in the car, and you said, all right, look, level with us. Is it 1 or 2 bodies? Because that's a lot of body parts for just... And he went, I don't know, 15 or 16? And now we've only got 48 hours.
48 hours? Yeah, nah, surely.
Maybe 48 hours per body, but no. Just hold him for a month. Anyway, they do all the fingerprints and all of that kind of stuff, and in his musings, I don't know what to call it, like his recordings, because he records himself talking about, he goes, I surprised the CIA.
How does he record himself?
I don't know. He records himself in his cell all the time. He has a freaking tape recorder all the time. So he records himself all the time.
Yeah,
he records himself in his cell. He records himself going to the courthouse. He records himself all the time, and I don't know how or why they're even letting him do this. Like
that seems like a privilege.
Yeah, he says, I surprised the trio. I've written Brie, but I meant trio. I've surprised the CID trio by interjecting I would tell them everything. And it's just like, he's so arrogant. He wants to be different. He wants to be something special. He wants to be an enigma. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that works out well because I've literally never fucking heard of him.
Yeah, I know. I know. But also, he just wants to be in control. Like, he's now knows that the game's up, but he needs to regain the control. So regaining the control is making sure that he's the one telling this story. And he says, I'd go drinking, pick up a guy, take him home. Next morning I'd wake up and they'd be dead. I've got no idea how it's happened. Honestly, mate,
no idea. God, wow. How that?
Not a clue. Don't know how that happened.
Not again!
Damn it! I was like, 15 times?
Yeah.
15 times? Do you know what I would do after the second? Stop drinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? If every time I go out drinking a dead person is next to me, stop drinking.
Yeah. Yeah. 100.
Anyway, he doesn't know the names of his victims, which is so indicative of, yeah, I know, of just, he's disgusting. He just doesn't care. And he also says no other British murderer has ever been so forthright. Well, you've just told everyone you did it in your sleep, you dingbat. So...
And also, why is that something to be proud of?
I know, he just wants he wants to be a first at something, and it's like, you're a first-class knob, and that's about it. If I'm honest.
Yeah, it's good. Get him.
And also, that means that he was like studying or following serial killers, because let's be honest,
Comparing, yeah.
who knows that? Like before today, like now when we have podcasts and documentaries all over the place, no one knows how forthright serial killers are in their interviews. It's only now.
Yeah,
I mean, he probably didn't. He either was studying them or he was just talking for the sake of talking, but either way, he's a freaking idiot. Anyway, he says he's going to be the biggest of the police and the journalists' cases, so, you know, it's going to be the biggest of their careers. We then have someone called Douglas Bentz from the Daily Mirror. And I just was a little bit fascinated with how this man looked, because I couldn't do a composite sketch, right? I could never. But I just want you to imagine, he's an older man, so his face is like quite...
sagged a little bit.
Yeah, like sort of if you...
He's got the jab.
Yeah. And then he's got a side parting, and then a sort of bowl cut with the side parting, and then a moustache, and he's a bit of a Jack the Lad, and I just found him really funny. I don't know why. But he says, he hears about this story, he phones Scotland Yard, and he's like, I want the scoop. And Scotland Yard's like, I don't know what you're talking about, mate. I don't, honestly never heard of it. And he goes, all right, well, I'm going to write the story anyway. That was his journalistic tactics. Journalistic? So he writes this story based on just rumour. And then he's thinking, should I write this? I'm not sure if I should write this, because people read the news in the morning and it would make them sick into like their cornflakes, so I'm not really sure. And then we've got Bill Hamilton, who's from the... Honestly, he says we don't want people dry heaving in their cornflakes.
It's all going down the toilet anyway, so...
Ew! And then we've got Bill Hamilton from the BBC, and he's like, oh, this case is so boring, I've got to go and deal with it. And it's not exciting.
Boring?
Yeah, just a man with chopped up bits of... Honestly, I can't believe it. We just found some flesh in a drain, and I know what you're all making such a big deal of. And he says they arrive, and he was like, usually everything would be cordoned off, and it wasn't. We were at the front door, like... I was like, wow, okay. And they interview these people, like... You know, when I was talking about the Yorkshire Ripper, and I was saying, like, why are they what are these interview techniques? They are going for any story at this point. They interview one of the neighbours, and they go into the neighbour's home, set up their recording equipment for the neighbour to go, yeah, I mean, I'd wave at him while I walk the dog, and he's nodded back.
Riveting. This is first-class journalism, right?
Yeah, honestly, and... They are outraged that he interviews people in the job centre. They're like, you know, he has an important position in local government. Like, well, I mean, it's worrying because of the fact that he's killing vulnerable people. That's why it's worrying. It's not worrying because you've got someone in this, like, respectable position. Have you met the people at the job centre?
Oh, God, now I'm worried that they're all serial killers.
They need something to liven up their day, honestly. But they only found they found 3 bodies at Cranley Gardens. So they're like, oh, where are the rest of the bodies? And they realise that the rest of them are at 195 Melrose Avenue, which is his first address. And there's people everywhere, they're going in to Melrose Avenue and blah, blah, blah. And they just hand the police these green overalls and they're like, go on then, go find them. go start digging up the garden, go and start doing this. And he says he was putting the corpses under the floorboards, but because of the maggots and the rot, he then had to start burning them and burying them. And one neighbour says, yeah, I remember him having bonfires. Not phased whatsoever.
Always had barbecue.
Always had. And so they're now going to dig up this garden, but the ground is completely freezing. Like, it's snowy, it's cold, it's icy. Nielsen tells them, like, oh, did you search the rest of the flat? Like, his own flat. And they're like, no, not 100% yet, but... And they do, and they find a hand and an arm. Ew. And because there wasn't loads of missing people reports, because nobody cared about these people, they were homeless, they were runaways, or they'd gone... Can you not yawn during my episode, please? Or they'd gone travelling.
Sorry, I'm not a sociopath.
Not come back. So anyway, they've now found this hand and this arm, and they fingerprint it, and they realise that all of these victims were probably like young men, and these victims, these fingerprints come back in the system as a guy who was like not into crime, he'd like had petty things happen. So now they are starting to be able to identify who these people are. But he basically was going for people who were young men, often gay, so that, you know, the stigma attached and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, 48 hours after he's been arrested, he is charged with 1 count of murder against this 20-year-old who...
One count of murder, even though they found 2 bodies.
But they can't identify who they are, so they can't charge him for it yet. And all the journalists are so excited. They're like, oh my God, he's going to be this huge monster of a man. Da, 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 da. And he gets out of the police van and they are all in shocked. He is this skinny, weak, weedy looking geeky guy. Like, he's so ordinary looking.
Yeah.
They call him ordinary looking. I'm like, he's disgusting. Like, no matter which way you slice it.
Him. I want to see what he looks like.
They won't, he doesn't hide his face. They're all expecting him to come out like head covered, blah, blah, blah. And he won't.
Why does he kind of look like David Tennant?
Oh my God, David Tennant plays him in a film. Is that what you're looking at?
Oh, maybe. Okay, maybe. Oh, okay,
Jesus.
Yeah. No, it just came up with the picture of David Tennant. But it does look like him.
They cast him well. But David Tennant's the loveliest man in the world. Yeah, and he's like, I'm not hiding my face. I've got nothing to hide. He said, I'm a man, not a monster, and only the guilty hide their face.
What?
Yeah.
But you are guilty.
Yeah. But, you know, he's not going to hide his face. Anyway, they contact his mum, the BBC guy, and they have an interview with her. She actually says no, which I felt really bad for her, and they were like, oh, but we're already in the area. Seems a shame for us to go home and then come back again. But yeah, she interviews them and she's like this little old lady. And she's like, how did the people living with him not notice anything? If he was here, I would have noticed something. She wasn't that angry, actually. She was quite calm about it. But I was like, would you though? Because I don't know if you would. You might have noticed the smell of the dead people. That was definitely a giveaway.
Yeah.
He talks about...
Also, how did these people go into his flat and not smell something?
This is my point. I don't get it. Unless they're just so drunk or whatever, but ew. And then he talks about his upbringing throughout the whole, like, all the time. And he blames it on, I didn't have a dad. I grew up poor. I'm a little unloved baby. And it's like, okay, but so many people are. And he was like, there's no photos of me as a child. And then... there's definitely photos of him as a child because I found them. Like, calm down. And he said...
Are you sure they're not of David Tennant?
No, they're not. They're not. He's only 8 or 9. And then he says at 8 or 9 was when he first loved another boy. And he was like that, but it was illegal to be gay. And he was really ashamed. And... I was so annoyed because he said something that I really agreed with, which annoyed me. But he was like, why was I being punished for something that was so natural? And I was like, yeah, I get that. But, you know, you can't go murdering people because of it. You know?
Yeah, and molesting your sister.
Yeah, like, how... the predicament was bad. How you dealt with it was poor choices.
Yeah.
And of the pub... bad choices. A lot of the pubs where he picked up men, they were gay bars, and So they are looking in the gay bars because they need to talk to people who've like met him and blah 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 blah. But it is really difficult because the homophobia is everywhere and the police are super homophobic and everyone's homophobic. And while they're doing that, they're continuing to dig up the garden and they are finding there's a female police officer and she's digging up the garden too. And she's like, we were finding bits of bone every couple of minutes. Not like every few hours. She's like, every couple of minutes. But they are all so small because they've been burned. Like, they can't put things together. But then, at his flat, they find a national insurance card. And his name was Martin. Not the Martin who died. This is the other Martin. And so they're thinking, this is great. This is the first person who we actually might, either it's a victim or it's somebody we're going to be able to talk to. And so 5 years prior, Martin had been playing the ching, ching, ching. What are they called?
Like plots, like gambling.
Yeah, fruit machines, that kind of thing. And
yeah.
Nielsen was behind him like, and he eventually like gets him to come home with him, and they go home and they're listening to classical music, and then they go to bed. Now it doesn't specify, but I'm kind of assuming what he means. And he wakes up and there's smoke and Nielsen is sitting on top of him and he's like, what's happening? And Nielsen's like, oh, you knocked over the fire. But I think they mean like, those little electric heaters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Martin throws water on it and then he leaves and he's, oh, I feel terrible, blah, 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 blah. And then he's thinking back and he's like, I didn't knock that over. What is he talking about? And he kind of realises, this man was sitting on top of me, pinning me down, and there was fire around me. Like, that sounds like he was trying to hurt me.
Yeah, retrospectively, I was in danger.
Yeah. And I felt really sorry for him because he said that, like, when he was younger, he knew he was gay and people would say to him, like, oh, you'll grow out of it and blah, blah, blah. And he ran away at 14 and sees a lot of, he was a very, very vulnerable person. And at 14, he is sleeping rough and he sees a lot of men and boys kissing in this area. And he asks someone, like, why is this happening around here? And apparently he's standing on what they called the meat rack, which was an area of London in Piccadilly Circus where young boys would stand out and wait to be hired as rent boys. They call them rent boys. Is that still a term?
I honestly don't know, but I don't know. I wouldn't know. I mean, I wouldn't
As
say
sex work. I mean, the thing is, I don't want to use sex workers because I also feel like these boys, a lot of them are underage. So saying sex work kind of implies that it's, consensual and stuff. But I mean, he was 14 and he gets into it. So
yeah.
But yeah, he now realises this man was trying to kill me. And they managed to find him and talk to him. And we have this kind of stigma that the police have pushed out, of they are homeless and they're gay and blah, blah, blah. But we have a woman called Leslie who was Graham's wife. Do you remember? And he was the drug addict, and she was like, and she's really upset by this stigma because she was like, Graham wasn't homeless. Graham wasn't gay. He had a family. And also, which I thought was awful, she was told what happened to Graham, like the whole keeping him alive in the mirror kind of thing. She's told that by a journalist. Like, a journalist tells her what happened to him. Yeah. Which is so gross. One of the what does green behind the ears mean?
It means that you're like a little bit naive.
Yeah, so we have this journalist, and that's how he describes himself. I figured that's what it meant, but I didn't really know. I've never.
Or a bit new, I think.
He was. That's what he said. He was new, and he's called Russ, and he starts writing to the killer, and he wants him to write a book, and he's flattering him, and Nielsen is writing this story in prison and recording himself, and blah blah blah. But a couple of key bits of information come out in these letters. One of them was that he said that his grandfather was actually molesting him as a child and he was a paedophile. Now, I never want to say to somebody that what they went through isn't true, but I also feel like this man classically blames other people for everything that goes wrong in his life.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. I'm just not sure.
But it would also, I guess it maybe would make sense as to why he started molesting his sister, because sometimes people do that, because they think that it's that's normal. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say yes or no either way. But the other thing was that he would cover himself in talcum powder and act like he was a dead body. Like that was his sexual fantasy. Oh, I know, gross. So, 8 months after the arrest, they have only identified 7 of his victims. There are other bodies, but they cannot identify them. So we have Ken Ockenden, who was the Canadian student. We have Martin Duffy, who was the 16-year-old. We also have someone called William Sutherland, who was 26 years old. He was Scottish and he was unemployed. We have Malcolm Barlow, who was 23 years old. We have John Howlett, who was 27 years old, and I'm pretty sure he was a sex worker because they talked about him a lot when they were interviewing people in the West End. We have Graham Allen, who was the 40-year-old, and the reason they were able to identify him was because he had previously broken his jaw. We have Stephen Sinclair, who was 20, and there are other victims who have profiles, so it will say like blonde, green eyes, whatever. But then I thought, if you've only got bones, how have you built these profiles about them?
Are these profiles that were built back in the 80s or? Interesting. Maybe,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there was hair left over, you know? Maybe they found.
But they knew like eye
found
colour,
DNA.
and they had things like moustache. They
Yeah,
knew
or
height.
maybe it was people like from when they were talking to people from the bars, maybe
Yeah, maybe.
witness statements. But then I guess you don't actually know whether or not they were killed. But
Yeah. But anyway,
perhaps they're just piecing things together in that way.
they speak to William Sutherland's mother, and she is so traumatised by London. They ask her, like, what's your piece of advice if anybody's child wants to move to London? And she's like, don't go there, it's an awful place. And I get the kind of sentiment behind it of, like, keep your babies in the safe. You know, I get it. The trial is due to start, and they advise Leslie not to go. They say, you know, they're going to be going through all the gruesome details. Don't go. And she's like, no, I'm going. Like, I'm standing up for him. I'm giving him a voice. And Nielsen is freaking recording in the van. What on earth is happening? Guess what
Why
he calls
is he
it?
allowed this? Why is he allowed this privilege?
He calls it the Day of Reckoning.
Oh, f*** off.
I literally wrote, shut the fuck up.
Fuck off. Oh.
And the journalist, the one who looks like a 80s porn star, he says it's a theatre. And it's like theatre with actors.
Oh my god.
And
this isn't the Globe Theatre. This isn't a Shakespeare play.
No,
this
this is the
guy
Old
fucking
Bailey.
murdered
Yeah.
15 people. Like, can we not? Can we stop romanticising this? Like, what the hell is wrong with these people?
They even said they can imagine a camera on a crane.
Oh, get out of here.
And all the journalists want him to plead not guilty because they want the story. But obviously that then means the family's all having to go through trials and blah, blah, blah. So obviously, what does he do? He wants the attention. He pleads not guilty. Ugh. And what's it called? Who's the person? His defence lawyer is called Ivan Lawrence, and he defended the Krays. Wild. Yeah.
What?
He's going to claim
That's
he's
so interesting to think that it was like that same era, you know, that man defended both. Like, I wouldn't have thought, I don't know when I thought the Krays were, like, I knew that they were like that kind of time, but
yeah,
you just don't think of it happening at the same time. It's interesting, huh?
Yeah, they're going to try and plead insanity so that he can't get life in prison. And they need to find people to prove that this was premeditated. And nobody wants to testify on the stand because they're like, they are going to get ripped apart. You have these men who are gay at a time where it's very homophobic. They don't want to get up there and have their sex life ripped apart. And so they find a man called Carl Stoughton, and Even Nielsen talked about him as like one of his survivors. They met in a gay bar, they got a cab together, they went home, went to bed, and Nielsen says, "Don't get caught on the sleeping bag." I thought, why are you in a sleeping bag, you fucking weirdo? And then I realised he's probably somebody who doesn't have a duvet on his bed, isn't he? And they like sleep in a sleeping bag. And he wakes up and he realises that he is in a bath of cold water and he is drowning. He's breathing in the water, he can't breathe, and he's panicking. He manages to get away, but he goes to the police, he tells them, and they don't care at all. And it is about this time that they realise that there were 5 reports made to the police by men about Dennis Nielsen, and the police didn't take any of them seriously.
Jesus.
Didn't care about any of them. Yep. And Stoughton basically is gaslit by the police, and he's like, oh, well, you know, they know what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe they're right and I'm wrong. And so that's like it. And the reason that this story is so important is because they need to prove premeditation in order to prosecute as fully as they want to. And the comment about the sleeping bag implies that he was going to pass it off as an accident. Like it's an accident, like getting stuck on the sleeping bag and choking on the sleeping bag, I think. And because he said to him, be careful, don't choke on the sleeping bag, it was his way of, it was their way of showing that it was premeditated. But
it was premeditated.
Yeah, but that's what they're trying to prove. But the real reason that Stoughton actually wasn't killed, and apparently this comes from Nielsen himself, was that there wasn't enough room under the floorboards. How gross is that? Yeah.
But the thing is that why do you need to prove? Surely every serial killer is like the murders are premeditated.
Because if they can go down the insanity, yeah, but if they can, because the gay defense was probably a thing at this point, and if he can say like, oh, I got drunk and then out of anger I did this, they can probably plead insanity if he acted on like insane
15.
impulses. Yeah. Or 16, he's not sure. But Carl Stoughton and Martin actually both testify. Freaking legends. Like, they get up, they did it, they're just amazing. Like, the female police officer, she's like, it was incredible to see. And he's just so freaking arrogant. I hate him. But anyway, the jury retire and they find him guilty on 6 murder charges. There was also 2 things of attempted murder, which I believe he was also found guilty on. But that means that all the people that were never identified, they never knew who they were. And he's just an awful, disgusting human being. And he wants to blame everyone in his life for everything that ever happened. And the journalist puts it really, really well. Like, Nielsen wants you to believe that he's this victim of his life. And actually, that's not true. It wasn't. Whatever your reasoning is, like, you could have the worst childhood in the world. It doesn't mean you grow up to be a serial killer. But what society is responsible for is the fact that he never would have got away with this if it was people that people cared about. If they weren't homeless, runaways, drug addicts, gay, then it would have been taken more seriously. If those men had gone into a police station where they were accepted and they were taken seriously, then maybe none of these things would have happened.
Yeah. And I mean we've seen it before as well, like in the Stephen Port case, and I'm sure in many, many others that yeah, I mean sometimes the police really do just choose who's worth investigating, and that sucks. And it sucks to know that it happened then and it still happens now.
Yeah, of course. It's just awful. And I was annoyed by sort of documentaries and interviews, and I feel like they did this in the Yorkshire Ripper one as well. They interview people, because obviously they don't say a huge amount about the unreported cases. Like, there's ones in here that were never even in like the documentary and stuff, and it's like they talk about how hard they were trying, but you don't openly acknowledge 5 reports were made. We had a chance to stop this person and we didn't, because we didn't care about a gay man. And I find it frustrating. I just think you're hypocritical. I just think, don't sit there in front of a camera now telling us what a great job you did. And okay, maybe it wasn't that one particular detective, but that, what's the word?
Yeah, but there wasn't really much of an investigation for them to do, because they found the flesh, interviewed the one man that was looking suspicious, and he showed them where the bodies were in his wardrobe, and then admitted to killing 15 people in the back of the car. Like, it's not, they didn't really do a great job, because if that person hadn't found the flesh in the drains, he would have carried on doing it, and it could have been 100 times more than that. Like, I mean, I wouldn't really give yourself a pat on the back, because it didn't take much investigation.
No, but I'm saying, like, maybe he wasn't the one who didn't care because they were a gay man, but you still worked in that environment. You in some way, you were either complicit or you didn't care enough to stand up for it. And
there 5 reports. What are the chances that all 5 of those reports went to the same person?
Exactly. You know, what's that word I'm looking for? The culture. The culture was there. The culture of homophobia was there. So only 8 of the victims were ever identified, and that means that there are 7 or 8 who are never known, and their families will never know what happened to them. I was quite... Ugh. I feel like my research was, why is my brain like this? Like, I'm all over the place. It makes so much sense when I'm recording, and then when I'm reading it back to you, I'm like, I've gone off on so many tangents every 30 seconds.
Interesting. Huh. What's that like?
But when I checked this over like 3 times, and I was like, that all makes sense. Yeah. She's going to understand that bit. What is wrong with me?
But that's why you tell me, so we can clarify. Dream team!
You're so cute when you come to me with your perfectly scripted,
and then I say stuff like, I don't know, I literally can't talk half the time, so...
Anyway,
I can write the scripts, I just can't read them out loud.
Do you want some good news?
Tell me that he suffered an awful, horrible death.
Do you know what? I wasn't even going to tell you when he died, because I didn't want to look up what happened to him. 12th of May, 2018, he died, he's dead, ugh. He's done.
He just died in prison?
Yeah, don't really know what happened to him. Hopefully he was, I don't know, killed by paper cuts or something. But, he's dead, so the world's a better place. You're looking up how he died now, aren't you?
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm not giving him that time of day.
So 2 days before he died, he was taken to hospital with abdominal pains. He underwent an operation, but later suffered a blood clot. Nielsen's inquest heard he spent his final hours lying in his own filth as he suffered a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm.
Great. I'm so glad.
Lying in his own filth.
I'm a bit sad that it was only for a few hours. Like, could he not have had like one of those really long drawn out illnesses?
Oh yeah, but for at least 2 days he was
in pain.
He was suffering. Yeah.
Good, I'm glad. I'm so glad.
Internal bleeding, thank God. At least that's something.
Hoover fluff of a human. Anyway, I love you so much. Thank you so much.
I love you. Follow us on social media.
Follow us on everything, 26tolife_pod on Instagram and TikTok, and 26tolife_pod on YouTube and Spotify. Also, that's it. I haven't got anything.
Oh, okay. But thank you so much for telling us that story. That was a great one.
It's okay. I'm gonna try and get them like a bit better scripted.
No, I think it was really good. You tell it really well. Tomorrow I've got like a crazy one. Crazy.
Bye, love you.
Bye, love you, bye.
Bye, love you, bye. No, don't hang up. Don't end it.